Need some suspension work and shocks and brakes, brake pads, lining, steering box, transmission, rear end.
Ka-chow.
Just don't see no cars! It works! I love this button!
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
All right, welcome back to the Unnamed Movie Car Podcast, recording at you live from
LA.
Do you remember?
Is Florida? Maybe
I thought it was
I don't know.
Los Angeles.
Somewhere.
There was no license plates
Oh yeah,
in any of it, so you couldn't tell
You mean
where.
They
What?
weren't like in Blood Car where they were put on backwards or whatever?
Oh yeah, they put it on upside down. Or yeah, no, it was backwards.
Was it backwards? So
Yeah,
that-
because the shiny
'Cause
metal
that's-
part was facing out.
That's sneaky.
Funny you mentioned Blood Car. This movie reminded me a lot of Blood Car.
Did it? Now, okay, this was done by a group called Asylum.
Okay.
So I don't know. They've done the makers of this movie, and we haven't even said
Oh
it
yeah,
yet.
we watched 200 Miles an Hour. It's a 200. It's a 2011 movie found on. It's streaming on Peacock right now.
Yes, it is.
I don't know if by the time this comes out it'll be
Fan
streaming on Peacock.
suggestion. Fan
Oh
suggestion.
yeah, from the Nagy brothers, Brent and Alex Nagy. Thank you very much for the
absolutely
200 Mile an Hour suggestion for this movie.
Yeah, it was a good suggestion. It was yeah.
Well, before we get on with anything, if you're new to the show, we
Right.
wait 10 minutes before we talk about the movie to avoid any spoilers.
Right.
If you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, please check us out on YouTube. You'll see my thumbnails that I draw. I hand draw a thumbnail for each episode.
Yep.
And you can
in crayon.
Yep, and it comes out every Saturday at 8 a.m. Central Time, so that's 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah, now I'm sipping my coffee because I literally just fell asleep.
I know, we're both really tired.
I just woke up. Yeah, it's been a long day.
This was tax week in the Pradle
Yes.
household. As I know, as this episode comes out, tax... Yeah, I mean, that's really how
that
this
is
week
our-
has felt. Oh God,
It really has. That probably, that was probably the best setup ever for that. Stupid, that little hit. But, it's we've been. And by the way, it was actually a nice day in the Midwest because we only
it was
get
60 degrees today, and it's, to peel back the curtain, it's March. I don't know when this episode will come out, but it's.
But in the Midwest, we get like 3 of these days a year. So we're
at least during the
outside
winter
doing stuff. Yeah, and then you had a little accident today, right?
Oh yeah, the GoPro fell off my car for the first time in my 6 or 7 year career on YouTube. I've never had the suction cup fall off.
Yeah, that was really. Yeah, I felt
and it
really
did.
terrible for you.
Oh, it's fine. The GoPro's fine. I haven't.
And the GoPro's fine.
I mean, it's scuffed around the bottom.
But
the rubber's coming off.
It fell onto the street. I mean, it fell off of a car onto the street. That's pretty good.
And I have about 3 minutes. It's facing downward, but I have about 3 minutes of you just hear the.
I want to see. I want to see that in one of the reviews.
Yeah.
That's kind of your B-roll.
Actually, do we have the phone set up? Can I?
Yeah, we
Can
do.
I set it up on the fly?
We can definitely set it up on the fly. You actually have it. It's looped in this thing
Oh
right
wow!
here. So
Okay, I
this
see that.
tangle you see
it's
that?
all All
right. So
it's
you
not
can-
tangled. Our
Nope.
studio's
Okay.
perfect. Don't let them tell you otherwise that our wires are tangled.
Yeah.
So
So it should be. Yeah, you should be all set if you want to play.
I don't have the video of the GoPro on the ground.
Okay.
But I do have some audio clips so I filmed my friend Theo's Miata today. It's a turbo 1.6. It has the turbo actually off of a Nissan SR engine.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll play a little bit of audio
All
for
right,
you.
cool.
We'll see if these levels work. So.
All right.
Oh.
And
Oh, no.
is that it? All right, here we go. Wait,
Is it plugged in? Oh, it's not plugged in.
It is not. Oh, it's.
Hold on.
All right, never mind.
This is what happens when you do stuff on the fly.
Yep. Okay.
There.
All right.
So
What
that's
is that?
the turbo blow off.
Really?
So when
Okay,
a
that's pretty
turbocharger
cool.
sucks in air and you
Yeah.
let off the throttle,
Yeah.
it obviously has extra air left over.
Oh, okay.
So some systems redirect that air back
Yeah.
into the system.
Yeah.
It's not super great. There's a whole argument for blow off valves if they're necessary or not necessary.
But they're cool.
They sound great. That's the best part of
It
having
is-
a turbo car.
It is true. It is true. That's as high as I can crank that. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
so that was
pretty,
pretty fun
that's
to film
crazy.
today.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Um,
Very, very cool.
but yeah. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And shout out to Theo. That's a
Yeah.
very, very well built car.
Theo's a cool guy. Shout out to Paul Shen.
Shout out to Paul Shin.
Another
Shout
cool
out to
guy.
Craig Lieberman.
Craig Lieberman. I hope he's a cool guy. I think he's a cool guy. We don't
I
know.
would assume so.
We want him to be on the show too.
Yeah, so we have another about 5 minutes here to do the pre-show. But what's
Yeah.
the fastest you've ever gone in a car? Either been
Wow.
in
Wow,
a car
okay.
going this fast, or you yourself driving.
I
Give
think-
both.
Honestly, I think okay. So a car I was in, I have no idea how fast. Most of the time, I've not gone very fast in a car. So I would say probably 120 miles an hour was the fastest I ever went,
Okay.
and that was in a Dodge Monaco.
Oh,
That was-
jeez.
that was the Dodge Monaco, and literally, it felt like I was floating over the highway. It was on the way to DeKalb,
Yeah.
and I was floating on the highway, doing 120 miles an hour in that thing, and that thing was booking. That is a tank. That
Yeah.
car is like a solid tank.
What year was it? A 74 or 76? Because the Bluesmobile.
76.
Okay, so the
76
Bluesmobile was a
Dodge.
74. Yours
Do-
was a 76.
76 Dodge Royal Monaco. So
Yeah.
it had the what is the pop-up
Garage door headlights.
garage door
yeah.
headlights. It had, I think it was like electric windows or something like that. So
Wow.
back then
Big
it was
stuff
like
for the
this.
70s.
Woo, yeah, it was, yeah, definitely.
Which actually,
it was
we'll have to talk off
pretty
mic.
cool.
Someone in Seattle sent me a whole list of, he collects American classic cars, and there's like
oh,
a Packard.
really? Okay, that's cool.
A Packard
Yeah.
400, a Chrysler New Yorker.
Yeah, yeah.
So I might fly out to Seattle
Oh,
at
okay.
some point
Well, that's
to
great.
film these cars.
So yeah, definitely good.
But 120 miles an hour in a Dodge Monaco.
Yeah, that's about. How about you? Well,
So-
you.
Two. I have
All right,
two.
fine. You have
Ridden
two.
in
Yes.
156.
Really? Which,
156 miles an
okay,
hour.
what car?
That was on
You
a
don't have to say the
racetrack.
person. Okay.
It was on a
it was at
racetrack. It was at
yeah.
the Porsche.
Experience.
Yeah, we were invited
Yeah.
to the Porsche Experience
Yep.
up at Road America, and there's a back straightaway on Road America called the Kink, and then it goes into Canada Corner, which is like a hard right-hand turn.
Were you driving?
No. So
Okay.
this was me riding in the
100
back of it was a Porsche Panamera.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop all the P's in this Porsche Porsche Panamera.
All right, that's fine.
Oh, what was it? It was the wagon. It was the V8 twin turbo,
Okay.
also a hybrid. So it
Oh.
made like 600 and some horsepower. Is the
It did?
Not Cross Turismo, maybe Cross Turismo, whatever it was. Super long name. But at the end of this Porsche Experience, we got to drive all the Porsches on the racetrack. A professional driver took us out.
Oh, okay.
And so
Gotcha, yeah.
throughout the day, there's a part on the back straightaway where it actually kinks. It actually changes direction slightly.
Oh, really?
And so when we did it, we had to take the chicane to slow us down, and we weren't able to hit the kink. Well, at the very end of the day, they let the professional drivers hit the kink full speed.
Okay.
And so I remember I was sitting in the back seat and I was staring over his shoulder, and the highest number I saw was 156.
Wow, 156.
Which is just
yeah.
insane. And then it has carbon ceramic brakes. So he stood on the brakes. And I mean, it was like 156 to like probably 50 or 60 in like a blink of an eye.
You're kidding.
It's insane. Carbon ceramic
That'd
brakes
be-
are very crazy. I did the Porsche Experience again in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I went out I got to drive the cars this time. And
Yeah.
well, I
right.
drove them for
yeah,
the other
that's
one.
cool. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But I drove the what was it? It was a 911 Turbo S.
Yeah.
That has carbon ceramic brakes. And the instructor told me that Porsche's motto is that the cars should be able to stop faster than they can accelerate.
Wow. That's
So when you're dealing with
nuts.
a 911 Turbo does 0 to 60 in about 3 seconds, those carbon ceramic brakes will stop you in about 3 seconds. Now,
That's crazy.
If you want to replace all of the brakes,
Yeah.
brake
yeah.
pads and rotors, what would you think that would cost? Like on a,
For all that, probably about $5,000.
yeah, 28.
28 grand, 28,000 to what?
for carbon ceramic brakes.
Wow.
So what a lot of Porsche owners will do, because a lot of people buy Porsches and never touch a racetrack. They buy the Porsche 911 Turbo because it's the 911 Turbo and it has the turbo name on the back.
Of course.
Then they take it to a shop and they put regular brakes on it.
Oh, okay,
and they take the carbon ceramic brakes and put it into a box.
Wow.
And then when they sell the car, they put the carbon ceramics back on and make the profit or whatever.
Yeah,
and never have to do a $28,000 brake change.
$28,000 brake change. Like, we're looking at the Pacifica brake change. I don't think it's going to be that much.
Yeah, like $50.
I think
the fastest I've driven piloting the car, I actually have it tied.
Right.
So on that same day, I drove a Porsche 911 Carrera at 128 miles an hour.
You drove
on the back straightaway, same back straightaway.
Yeah.
And then I tied it with my own personal Mazda 3 out in Utah.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
And so you could see for 5 miles in Utah.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, there's nothing. So I was like, if I'm gonna do it, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
And so I go for it.
Yeah.
I just put my foot down.
Yeah.
And I was with my girlfriend.
Cool.
And I was like, that's the fastest you've ever gone. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've gone 100 before. And I was like, that was 128.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, that was 128.
Wow.
I had gotten brand new tires the night before.
Yeah.
Like it was, and honestly, my Mazda was very, very stable.
Sometimes there are some cars when you go up there and then in speed and they just feel like they're going to fall
Which
apart.
we'll talk about with this movie.
Okay.
But my RX-7, the fastest I ever took my RX-7 was 110.
Wow.
On the main road here.
Okay.
This way. I think you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was at my friend Alex's house who recommended this movie, Alex Nagy.
Yeah.
And we were, hanging out and we were having a bunch of snacks. I think it was his birthday or something. Yeah. And I get in the RX-7, the red car, whose doors are behind you.
Yes. Literally behind me.
Those were literally part of the story. And I'm looking through the windshield that's also behind you. We could recreate most of it.
You could. I'm looking through the windshield of the car, but it's sitting here.
I get in the car and my stomach does a backflip.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is going to be hot liquid.
Oh, great.
And so it's like 2 a.m.
Nice, yeah.
And I'm like, I just go for it. I left the car on in the driveway.
Did you really? Wow.
And I just ran inside. Yeah. And luckily it was all okay. But I did about 110 on the way home.
Jeez.
And the front end started picking up off the ground. It wasn't
like real?
But you could feel the front starting to tug up. Yeah. Because basically the first gen RX-7 has this giant air scoop at the bottom, basically, and it's a wedge on top, but the air inlet is at the bottom.
Yeah, which we'll talk about in this movie, by the way. Yeah,
and the air comes up, but then you have this long hood, and the air gets trapped in there.
Yeah,
so it was pushing up on the hood, essentially pushing up on my weakened 35-year-old suspension in the front.
Yeah,
which it's funny. I have a concept drawn for a front air dam that I would build. I was going to build a front air dam for my car to help keep it down. But I've never taken a vehicle like that up to that speed ever again besides my Mazda 3.
Oh, well, that's good.
Which is a brand new car.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, you know what that sound means? All right, that sound means we're ready for spoilers. I'm sorry. So
if you plan on watching 200 miles an hour streaming on Peacock right now, we are going to get into spoilers now.
Yeah, we are going to spoil.
What did you think? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's pretty much my response to that whole thing. That didn't even work. That was
wait, why did it cut off? Wait, do it again.
I stopped it.
Oh, okay.
All right, there we go. I stopped it.
It glitched weird.
Well, yeah, I didn't so I could do
this movie
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
This movie was interesting.
Okay.
I guess. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Go for
it. To me it was very so there was a lot that just I was going, what? And then honestly, the big flub, which we'll talk about, I laughed almost to crying because of how bad this change was, this flub was. Really, really, really bad editing. Really bad special effects, by the way.
Yes.
Did you notice?
Yes.
Car racing and
So I have a list of notes here.
All right. So but what did you think though? Before you go into that, do you want to say? Because
we'll get into
me.
my notes. I think it's
I am asking you.
It's an incredibly cheesy movie.
Okay. All right.
And we'll get it because I took my notes while I watched it, so it's kind of a play-by-play of the movie.
Cool.
And so
all right.
this might be
That's a
some
good
of the
idea,
most notes I've ever written down for
Really?
a movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go through that then.
So opening scene, lots of rotaries. If you're a rotary fan, lots of rotaries. You see an RX-8. There's an RX-8 that drifts.
Yeah,
there's a
true.
couple FCs. Just in the background, there's a couple FD RX-7s. There's a lot of rotaries in this movie.
There are.
And I will say, off the top,
Yeah.
the car selection is very, very good.
Yeah.
It is filmed in 2011, but really holds true to the rest. Still to this day. There was an old Celica GTS.
Yeah.
There was a R33, which in 2011 would not have been legal in the States.
Okay.
So there's an R33 Skyline.
Was that a GTR that actually the bad guy had? Was that
Yes.
true? Oh, it was a GTR.
That is a GTR.
Skyline?
However, it's not a Skyline.
Okay,
They dropped the Skyline name for that generation of the GTR.
Okay, all right,
because Skylines, there was this whole thing in the 90s where Skylines are banned from the U.S.
They're
because
banned?
Nissan tried to import them under these like gray
Yeah,
laws. Whatever.
Yeah,
So
okay.
the new GTR was able to be sold in the U.S., but wasn't able to have the Skyline name.
Okay.
So when he jumps out and is like, "Oh, it's a Skyline," it's not a Skyline.
okay.
It's just a regular GTR, but whatever. So I will say, lots of good eye candy for cars.
Yes.
If you're into cars, you'll be
Yeah,
able
it
to
was
spot
cool.
a lot.
Yeah.
And I will say, the camera quality was a lot higher than I expected it to be.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give the movie that.
In terms of it being, I also think Peacock just has a really good streaming platform.
I think so too.
Because I watched the original episodes of The Office on streaming on Peacock before I watched this.
Okay.
They look so HD. I've never seen a
Really?
streaming service. I don't know if they use like a different compression
Could
than
be.
like
Could
Hulu
be, yeah.
and Netflix, but
Yeah,
like
could be.
it looks so crisp. And I thought that this movie looked so crisp.
Yeah.
Most of it. We'll talk about the other parts. But yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about. Yeah, let's talk more about it. But yeah.
So past just the rotary, the RX-8 and the RX-7.
Yeah, that was
intro.
cool stuff, and lots of, like you said, lots of rotaries and lots of fun stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for car people, this is a fun movie.
To look at, yes.
To look at.
To listen to, you'll want to shove an Allen wrench in your ears.
Wow. Okay.
So
there we go.
The main character's brother pulls up in a 370Z.
Yes.
That silver
Right.
Nissan 370Z.
I noticed that, yeah.
And immediately, this bothered me so much because they got stuff wrong that didn't need to be wrong. So he pulls up and he's like, "Oh, 370Z, it's an $80,000 car."
Yeah.
It's 30 to 40. Like if you got the top
it really?
trim, if you got the
Okay.
top trim, it was 40,000. The Nismo is
Okay.
$40,000.
All right.
Which like, why did they have to lie about that? Because even if he was like, "Oh, that's a 40,000," let's say it was a Nismo, which it didn't have the right Nismo parts on it. Let's just say it was a Nismo
Okay.
and was $40,000.
Right.
That's still like a lot of money for a car. Like for
it is.
you know,
Yeah,
for-
definitely.
if someone bought a $40,000 car, I'm like, "Oh, you're doing pretty good." Like,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
the 80,000 now
Well,
doesn't make sense?
There was $40,000 of cocaine in the trunk.
Oh,
so.
well, maybe.
That's what made it an $80,000 car.
In the movie, he's like 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds and 11-second quarter mile.
yeah.
It's 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds,
Oh,
so
wow. So
reverse
it's a
of
little
that.
bit, yeah.
And the quarter mile is 15 seconds for a stock 370Z.
Is it really? Okay.
So, like, I just don't... it was so unnecessary that, like, not only did he get the facts wrong, like, fine. Whatever. You know what I mean? If he
Yeah,
was like,
well-
"Oh, that's a $48,000 car," and you're like, "Oh, well, it's really 40, whatever."
Yeah.
But it was just so wrong that, like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It- well,
it really bothered me.
Geez, yeah, it must, because you're going on about that, and I totally understand.
Well, it's just because like it's like lying and telling people that I'm 6 foot when I'm 5'11".
right.
It's
yeah,
like
okay.
it doesn't really matter.
Right, exactly.
Or like I guess lying like if you were like 5'3" instead of 5'4". Like a small distinction.
Small bit.
The
yeah.
distinction isn't big enough to warrant a lie, is what I'm saying.
okay.
So I'm like, why lie about that car? It's still a good car. I love those 370s.
Yeah, well, I don't like the shape of them. I really don't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. I don't
Think
like
they're
the
too
shape
bubbly?
of them. There's something
do look
weird
fat.
about. Yeah, they do. I
They
mean,
do.
it's weird. It's I don't know what to say about it. Didn't our neighbors who had one? Didn't someone have one?
Neighbors across the street had a 350.
Oh, well, maybe that's
Which,
what I'm thinking.
when this car crashes, it turns into a 350Z.
Well, that's what crashes do. They
Right.
change your car
If you
into
get
a
in-
different car.
If you get into a car accident, it does. It affects the previous generation of your car, which is we'll get into in a second.
Okay.
Next up,
Yeah.
creepy mom is a stripper.
Yeah,
This
that
is
was really
when they're
cringy.
talking in the so it's two brothers.
Yeah,
And they're talking in the driveway with the mom. The mom is a
Yeah.
stripper,
yeah.
and he was like, "What did he say?" He was like, "Whoa, should I just put the rent money in your G-string or
Right.
something?" And I was like,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that
It was
was like,
so, and the whole mom being a stripper was
Yeah.
unnecessary. Did
I
it add
totally-
anything to the story?
no, I totally agree. It was
Because
completely-
they weren't down on their luck. It wasn't like
No.
mom
No,
was
they
out
weren't.
here, and there was a lot of nudity too,
yes, there
which
wa-
was
yeah, it
so
like-
unnecessary. Because if the
Absolutely
girl was just in a
unnecessary.
bikini and not
Yep.
completely topless,
Yep,
the
yep.
story would have been
would
the
have been
same.
fine. It was just that was just for whatever. That was
Yeah,
just,
it was.
gratuitous. It was
So yeah,
really the
there's
word
this
for it.
whole
Yeah.
B plot of like the mom and girlfriend and stuff, and it's very creepy, very unnecessary, and it kind of took me out of the movie. There's a whole
Yeah, it
There's
does.
like several scenes where they go to the strip club
Yes.
because he's talking to his mom,
they,
and it's like,
keep cutting back to the strip
like,
club.
oh my god,
It's
I'm like,
and it's boring. I'm
it's,
sorry.
it was
actually-
very. I zoned out for
right,
most of it.
Exactly. It's like, and they are dancing super slow, like they hate it, and they're
Yeah.
super bored. Now, that's probably how it goes, but it was, and then the weird thing of her saying, "I just want to dance." I'm like, that, okay.
Yeah, it was just.
Anyway, so
Yeah. Next up, I said the camera quality was really good. I was really
Yeah,
happy
it
with
was pretty
the
good.
camera
It was
quality
pretty
of it.
well,
Looked
quality wise, yes,
yes, like the action,
not
like
necessarily the movements and stuff, but the quality was pretty good.
some of the movements in the car chases, the actual driving
Yeah.
that they did, the
Yeah.
not CGI,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought was
No
decent.
kidding.
It was
Well,
okay for
but
a budget movie like this.
But I have to say, I'm in my honest truth about that first race.
Mm-hmm.
I literally was bored with the first race. It was the most unexciting
Yeah.
opening race to any car movie. Like, you expect it to be this big buildup, and literally it's like, okay, go, and then
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. But
it was, like,
honestly-
crazy.
Honestly, I assume they spent most of their budget renting red cameras because it looked. I just
It
couldn't get over the
probably,
fact
yeah.
that this
It probably.
visually looked very high resolution,
Yeah.
high dynamic range of
Yeah.
lighting. There wasn't any like pixelation in dark areas.
True, that is true. Yes.
Which we would have seen on Blood Car and
Right.
definitely on Poker Run.
Yes.
I mean, oh my god, it almost went down. I think it was 8-bit at some point. It was like Mario and Luigi. You know, you know, like that stuff. Like it was seriously. It went
Wow,
down to
yeah.
like Super Mario Bros. Level for Poker Run.
That is true.
Um,
That is true. But
so that was
this-
impressive.
And you're right.
Impressive.
The camera quality was much better than Poker Run. That's absolutely. No
So then
doubt.
we get to the first race, and I guess the girl owns the FC RX-7, and she goes, "Are you messing with my timing?" And then adjusts it.
Yeah.
FCs
knew
have,
you were gonna say
FCs have
something
electric
about that.
timing because
I knew
I
you were gonna
have
say it.
my
I knew you were going to say that.
my RX-7 has an FC engine in it, and so basically there's a distributor cap, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's distributorless timing,
Okay.
so it still has the aluminum or iron casting for where the distributor goes, but it's just this little nodule
Okay.
that the second gen got. The first gen
Right.
still had, rotor and cap and plugs and wires. This just had wires.
Yeah.
In no world could she have just leaned in and adjusted it.
Well, not only that, but normally,
Mm-hmm.
any engine, you wouldn't really look at the engine and go, you adjusted my timing.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way.
It bothered. That's the big bother with this movie for me was
Right.
that there was so many car buzzwords.
Yeah.
And
True. There were.
used either in the wrong context or no context at all. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I don't know. This wasn't a specific line from the movie, but basically, it's like, oh, look at that car's horsepower. It's like, oh, you're using a car word, but you're not using it at all in the correct sense.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's why I said, if you're a car fan, watch the movie, plug your ears.
Yeah, for the visuals,
it'll be a lot
it's
better.
Cool. But yeah, that's so true. Is that they use car words for inappropriate, inaccurately.
So I wrote in all caps, can't fix timing on an FC like that. So whatever.
I knew when you said that. When she said that, I was like, oh, Zach is gonna pick that up and just rip that apart.
Yeah, because that's literally the engine I have.
Yeah.
Next up, I said all reading brochures. That's what every character just kept listing off facts.
Yes.
And it was like, for the most part, they got a lot of it correct.
Yeah.
But like, no one ever talks like that. Second of all, no one ever cares about top speed of a vehicle.
Right.
Rarely do you care about top speed.
Especially not in race. I mean, she does mention the girl mechanic. Who plays Letty? I think.
Well, her and the girlfriend were so interchangeable to me.
Absolutely,
I forgot who was who.
You could have just had one, and then made that. You could have saved on a character or whatever. But I think she was supposed to be the quote unquote air quotes Letty of the like the Fast Five,
kind of the tomboy, works in the garage, outsmarts the boys,
right? Exactly.
But there was a lot of brochure reading. Oh, then, so the brother gets in the 370Z to do the race.
Yeah.
Right? And someone says, oh, you're going to have to drift this corner to make it.
Yes.
And then he looks over at the Korean kid and goes, oh, isn't that your people's thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm Korean, not Japanese. And he says like all the same. And I'm like, and then they just cut to the next scene and I'm like, oh, that's just racist.
It's just blatant, flat out blatant racism.
I literally have written here, your people's thing, blatant racism.
It is, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. And they,
I was like, oh my God.
Well, there was a lot of things in here.
It wasn't even like a tongue-in-cheek, it was just like, he's just being racist.
And this was 2011 when this was made. So that
released,
was released,
to be fair.
Okay, released in 2011 after Fast Five.
Just before Fast Five.
Oh, was it before?
Yeah,
because they were trying
3 days before Fast Five.
Okay,
I saw that fact too.
Yeah, exactly. They were trying
but it had to have been after 2009 because the Nissan 370Z came out in 2009.
Okay.
So it had to have been.
I'll give you that. So
after
about that. But still, that is like...
That's way late in the game to have just a race.
Cool,
some of the 70s movies we review on this show, there's going to be some racism thrown in there.
Well, and
it's not good, but it's like, it was more accepted at the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, the 70s movies that we watched had a lot of drinking and driving. And hitting women, misogyny, all that stuff,
That's more expected of the 70s, but in 2011?
Yeah.
And then they never mentioned it again, and I'm like, oh, that's just... It's just racist. That's all it is. It's just racist. Here's the thing. So, first of all...
Are we going to talk about the race now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We knew the brother was going to die, right?
Well, you know that's the only reason for the setup. You know that's going to happen.
But he keeps going like, I'll be right back. I'll see you soon. I'm going to have your tuition money soon. So basically, there's two brothers. I'm
not about to die. I'm not going to
basically.
Right.
There's two brothers. One guy is racing. The other... I believe younger brother.
I guess.
Just got accepted into college.
Yeah.
So the older brother is racing for a big prize money for his brother's tuition.
Okay, so let's just stop there just for a second.
Yeah.
The younger guy got accepted into college, right? Great. He has this girlfriend, and it's like he seems to have like, what's wrong? Like everything seems good for him.
Yeah.
Why is he like throwing himself into this crazy world? But go ahead.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's very strange. So anyway, so a guy pulls up in an R35 GTR. So that's 09 on, I believe. They're still making that.
What was his name? Krispy Kreme? Well, I can't remember the name of
the... Basically, so he races him, and then he's a dirty racer, and the brother in the 370Z crashes.
So here's that thing, exactly that. Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah. I actually watched it several times and replayed it. Mm-hmm. I did not see anywhere where the bad guy caused the crash.
Yeah.
He doesn't. All of a sudden, for no reason.
Well, probably because they didn't have the budget to show
Right.
them colliding,
Yes.
so it's just kind of
Yes.
assumed.
But it's assumed. But when you watch it, all of a sudden, the good guy, the brother, his car flips end over end, or just flips over and blah blah blah.
To be fair,
Yeah.
it's not really his car. Because when he gets into the accident, this is the first time we see CGI
Okay. Yes.
in the movie, which is god-awful CGI.
Really bad.
I mean, it literally looks like there used to be, probably around this time, actually, there was a free iPod Touch app
Yeah.
that was, it would put a helicopter exploding over whatever video you took in like 480p.
This is very much
was literally
similar
an
to
app.
that. Yeah.
It was,
like
it
that,
was,
yeah.
it was to support a movie. I forget which movie. It might have been a Fast and Furious movie.
That could have
It was some, or maybe Mission Impossible. It was some app that coincided with a movie release. And so basically you could pick between like 5 different animations, and then you would film on your iPod Touch's camera and then hit a button,
Right.
and there was a CGI helicopter that would come down and explode.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It looked
Okay.
very cheesy, but for
Yeah.
the time being in junior high,
Yeah.
that was a cool thing.
Well, yeah.
Same exact graphics.
Yeah.
There was no surface reflections on anything. Like everything was opaque and
Right.
like
the
matte.
windows were matte, so
Yeah.
you couldn't see anything in the windows.
But
and,
also,
really
the
bad
biggest thing
CGI. Really
is
bad.
that he's driving, let's just call it a 2010 Nissan
Okay.
370Z.
All right. Let's just, yeah.
When he crashes,
Yeah.
the model of the CGI
Yeah.
is a 350Z, which
that-
is from 2004 to 2009. So a completely the previous generation of the car.
That's what I'm telling you. Accidents cause your cars
That-
to revert back in time.
That's like crashing our Ford Taurus and then
Yeah.
you see a Pinto light on fire. Like it's the same thing.
Well, that's coming up later in the movie,
I
but let's
know,
go
I
ahead.
know.
Let's go. Okay, so let's continue on with this. But you're
Yeah.
right.
So the brother
Yeah.
crashes, obviously dies, and now
Yep.
he wants to get revenge.
Yeah.
Then it goes to the brother's funeral,
oh my god,
which is just a picture of him on a mantle, and
Yeah.
that's it.
well, they're at their house, right?
Yeah.
Is it some? It's
I
maybe it's
assume-
not their house, but it's some house.
Maybe it's like the reception
Right,
afterwards.
exactly. So maybe
but there's
it's the-
literally just a poorly cropped photo of the
Right.
brother on a mantle, and that's like all of the
It's a badly framed
Yeah.
image of him. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes, it's bad.
and so then the guy who wrecks him shows up, which like
now again,
yeah.
I'm gonna say
Okay,
he
didn't wreck him.
really wreck
But-
him. He
okay.
got blamed for it. But go ahead.
I'll call
What
him
he
the
said, but-
bad guy.
The bad guy. Let's
The
just call
bad
him the
guy
bad
shows
guy.
up,
Yes.
and his I guess banter dialogue is real weird
Oh.
because like he's like
Definitely
hey, he's
weird.
like I didn't kill your brother, but then he turns to the mother and he's like my condolences. It was like
Right. Right.
I put here I was like gangster, then my condolences, then gangster again. It was like this weird, and not like how they did it in the other guys.
Right.
Where like where they're fighting at the
Yeah.
funeral.
Yeah, which was awesome.
It's a hilarious
It's
scene.
a hilarious scene.
Hilarious, great scene.
Yeah.
But it was bad. It wasn't like good.
No, it was very bad. There was so many things bad about it. That whole scene was cringy. Lot of bad acting. The mom's bad acting. All the
Yeah.
characters are bad acting.
That's the
Just
thing is that
really annoying because of how bad they were.
I honestly feel like the director of photography, the cameramen all did a fantastic job in this
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I think they did pretty good.
The writing was just so
Yeah,
poor.
the writing was
Just atrocious.
Absolutely correct. I agree. Yes, the writing was
Next
bad.
up,
Yeah.
so after this, he decides to race the bad guy again. And he says, let's turn this car, the FC RX-7, which if you're a fan of RX-7s like I am, like
Yeah.
the FC gets a lot of screen time.
It does.
It's literally
It
the
does.
focus of the main car is an FC RX-7.
It is, and it's a white one.
It's a it's
Yeah.
a white turbo 2. It is
Right.
a turbo RX-7, which is funny because they keep talking about turboing it. It's already
Yes.
turboed. Because at least it had the turbo manifold on it.
Okay. Yeah.
It had the turbo manifold on it, but not the stock top mount
Oh, okay.
intercooler.
All right.
Which is, in case you cared.
Yeah.
But he goes, let's turn this into one of the fastest production cars made, which is that's a complete opposite of why you call it a production car,
Right. Exactly.
because it's made by a factory and you know,
we're gonna go to the Mazda factory and we're gonna have them redesign this.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
If he wanted to make it the fastest production car, he would have to have gone back in time and
Right.
talked to Mazda in
Right.
Hiroshima,
Yeah.
Japan,
Yes.
to make it
Yes.
faster. Because
Exactly.
production car means
Right.
came off the assembly line the way it is.
Right.
That's a modified car.
Yeah.
So
that is
that was another part where they just like the jargon, like fastest production car is like a high standard, but they just used it in the completely wrong. Like, yeah, like imagine I show up to a track running event and I'm like, I can swim so fast, and they're
Right.
like, this is track here.
This is completely.
Yeah, I'm
different.
sure you
It's
can,
just-
but like the
Right.
wrong place,
Yep.
wrong time.
No, exactly.
Then this bothered me.
Okay, here we go.
Rarely did they call the car an RX-7.
True.
They called
is
it
true.
first when they're looking for one in the junkyard,
Yeah.
which they never show the one they find in the junkyard.
No,
so
they never
obviously
do.
there wasn't one.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, oh, we're looking for an MX-7.
Yes.
MX-7, which is mixing up MX-5, the
And
Miata,
right, an RX-7.
and the RX. And
Yeah.
okay, to be fair, there was an MX-3 as well.
Well, and
but there was no MX-7.
so in
I don't
that,
believe.
when he said MX-7, I was like, wait, what? I was like, I don't know what car they're looking for. I don't know why. What?
It's the RX-7. But then
Okay.
other characters call it an RX-7.
Yes, they do.
And other characters call it an MX-5.
Including the
owner.
girl mechanic.
Who
Who
she
is,
owns?
I guess,
or
yeah, she's the owner.
She keeps saying it's
So,
my car.
The female mechanic, it's like, okay, it's, and she says something about, well, that never happened, or they never did that in an MX-5, and I'm like, yeah, because you have an
Because you have an RX-7. It's not an MX-5. Like an MX-5 is the Miata. So, which you
okay.
heard earlier in the show.
Yeah,
Theo's Miata.
very good. Yes.
So that really bothered me, of course.
Yeah.
Then, oh my God,
Okay.
profanity coming up.
Yeah.
So she shows him all these drawings of Aero that she drew this like body kit for
Yes.
better Aero.
Yeah.
Her drawings were shit. You almost got it there.
I almost got it. Oh,
Literally, that is my note. Is
they
that's
were
what
really
I said.
bad. Thank you.
They were
I was
like
gonna say,
these
they were-
child drawings, and he's like, "Yes, this Aero will work."
Oh, that looks just like that. Yeah.
First of all, how do you know Aero works without
Right.
either A, testing it, or B, putting it into a
Right,
wind tunnel,
exactly.
essentially
Yeah.
testing it?
And yeah.
And she kept saying ground effect, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's
She
just a
does.
buzzword. It's
She
just a
does.
buzzword."
She keeps saying ground effects, and I'm like, well, are you putting on like LEDs underneath there or something, or fluorescence underneath the
Yeah.
car for the ground effects? I mean,
Like a lot of manufacturers will like put like low bumpers
Yeah,
on
I
it
know,
and call
but
it
it's-
ground effect
right.
bumpers and stuff. Like the Toyota Avalon TRD that I drove, which is a weird sport version of their big sedan, the Avalon.
I always hate that name, by the way.
The
TRD.
Avalon?
No, the
Oh,
TRD.
TRD, Toyota Racing Development.
Yeah, I think that's a stupid name.
Yeah, turd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
TRD, turd. It's really bad.
I remember because I reviewed one, and one of the press releases said that it now came with ground effect bumpers, and I'm like,
Fine,
they
whatever,
added
yeah.
a lip to it, like that's it. So
But-
yeah, but her drawings were terrible.
Her
and he was like, "Yeah, this will work," and I'm like, "What is that? It looks like a kid drew it."
It does. It looks like a second grader sketched it, and the second grader was also on cough syrup and wasn't feeling good that day, and actually didn't even show up to school.
Yeah.
That's how bad the picture is. It
No-
just
no
is
bueno.
Not even, not good at all.
Next
so.
up, I said nudity for no reason, which we already talked
Absolutely.
about.
For no reason
Like so,
whatsoever.
So
yeah.
the kid goes to the strip club to talk to
Yeah.
his mom, which is just a weird dynamic.
That is a very bizarre, uncomfortable, weird thing.
But the girl behind him is just braless,
Right,
and it's like
yeah.
there's no. She's not. I don't even know if she's talked to,
right.
or
I
she
think
says
it's-
something. She's like, "Oh,
there's
someone's here
one
to
like,
see
hey,
you."
so and so,
Yeah.
hey, good to see you or whatever, and it's like, that's just so weird.
And
it's
that ties in with my next thought of blood car vibes,
yeah,
where it seemed like they just did nudity because big famous movies sometimes have nudity in it. And
Well-
it's like, well, if we get these nude girls in it, then it's
Yeah.
like that'll up our production value.
well, they made
Shout
and
out
they
to
did.
Super 8.
right? But they made a not that Super 8 had nudity in it, but I mean,
No,
they
but
just
the kid keeps yelling production value.
But no, really. So you're absolutely right that they kept going back to the strip club, and they tried to make the strip club like a side story. And the owner of the strip club said, "Well, I don't want any drama.
Yeah, take it out back.
Take it out back. No drama." And then it was like drama.
There was always drama. And
Always
he was like,
drama. Yeah. And he's like, "No, I can't have any drama in here."
Well,
and it was
then at one
so
point,
bizarre.
he's like, I can't have a depressed stripper.
Right? Exactly.
He's like, it's the exact opposite of why people come. I'm like, how harsh can you be?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, yeah, I can't have my workers being depressed.
Right, exactly. But
I mean, how like tone deaf is that?
Which is funny though, because that's like how it always is. And then they were talking about the fact the mom even mentions that pole dancing should be in the Olympics. Now, I found that interesting because there are men that do pole dancing too. And it's not really pole dancing, I don't think, but whatever. But it is an incredibly athletic thing to do, and it is something you could. But it was like they slipped it into the movie, or maybe they jammed it in the movie because they wanted to be saying something, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes.
Yeah.
But they're trying to say something, and
like
then also
it was almost like they wanted an applause break in the theater.
Exactly.
I don't even know if this hit theaters.
I don't know. But the other thing was that is that they talked about the fact of, oh, well, just because I'm a stripper, it doesn't mean I'm a whore. And they made that. I mean, they made that several times. They said that. And it says, well, and the girl says, well, just because I'm a stripper, it doesn't mean I'm a whore. And I'm like, yeah. Or she said, it doesn't mean that I have whore written across my forehead. And I'm like, yeah, but it also doesn't say saint either. It's not like Mother Teresa was at the strip club.
It was just a weird argument to make.
Right.
In a car movie.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
Like,
and I've known people in the business and blah, blah, blah. And it's not, it's fine. It's what, for those
movies
people
make statements all the time, but this was like a fetch. I mean, this was far-fetched.
So that's the best way to put it. Yeah. That this was not like, this wasn't like, what was there's been lots of movies I think about. Anyway, but it was a stretch.
It feels a lot like
jammed in there.
Like when you'll see like a cooking show.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is how you make a homemade from scratch apple pie.
Right.
And halfway through baking it, this I'm saying this sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Where they'll stop and they'll be like, you can donate here to stop child slavery in Uganda.
Right. Yes.
And it's obviously that's a good thing to try to stop.
It is.
But also like it's so tone deaf and like it's not tied in well, and it seems gross almost.
Well, and again, it was just jammed into there in the movie, and it was just a crazy thing. So that was like, it actually really bothered me. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's a totally different movie. Striptease. That was the one I was thinking of. That was the movie with I almost said Carrie Fisher. It's not Carrie Fisher.
Oh God. At what point in her career? Because that'll depend on if I'll watch it or not.
No, that was with.
It was her last movie.
Oh my gosh, with Betty White.
Yeah, Betty White.
No,
Carrie Fisher and Meryl Streep.
It was with there's I'm sure people
Robert
are shouting
De Niro.
it. Yes, you got it. Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
It was
Mike.
I'll remember later on. But anyway, totally different movie, obviously, and made. I'm sure I didn't even see it, but I'm sure it made a lot of things, but just didn't have a place in this movie. It just there was
really didn't.
No use for. There was no place for this.
And the whole point of that was just like it just takes you out of the movie because
it does. It
all
was so
the car action stops.
Yeah. Yes,
and like honestly, to Fast and Furious's credit.
Yeah.
They do have women in bikinis and stuff, but it's usually about 8.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Which is, to be fair, is like 8.5 seconds of just a girl's butt, which is like, oh my God.
Exactly,
but then it pans up to Dom sitting on a car and then they get on with the scene.
Right, exactly.
This was just, I don't know.
It was. No, you're absolutely right. No, it was. Go ahead. Yeah.
So next part is the part we wanted to talk about. Is that for the first time, we see the cars switching.
Yes, they actually switched. Now, it wasn't like I thought it was going to be. Oh, go ahead and say it.
So basically, there's a scene where they finished the RX-7, which for some reason they painted it green.
And it is an RX-7. It's
an FC RX-7. It has different headlights. So what I found out,
and they never showed them painting it green. But go ahead. Yeah.
So
Uh-oh, what?
So the green RX-7 was actually owned by a drifter, like a professional drifter.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And so that's why. First of all, also, if you're
not a drifter like a guy roaming from town to town. Okay. All right.
If you're building like a car for a race event, why would you swap out the headlights? Why would you paint it? Like, all of this stuff was so unnecessary. But basically,
hey, that paint adds.
I assume the reason they did it is that they got
horsepower.
They got the guy because the guy who owned the car, I believe, actually did some of the stunt driving in his own drift car.
You mean the non-CGI'd stunt driving?
Yeah. But basically, basically they finished this. They finished the RX-7. It's really a different green RX-7,
right?
And they take it out, and the main guy and the girl mechanic go out and they're drifting through the streets. But sometimes it just switches to a different car that they're driving. And so originally, when Brent and Alex told me about this movie at Autobahn Country Club almost a year ago at this point, they told me that it switches between...
Right, and that was why I wanted to see the movie. That is exactly why I wanted to see it.
It switches between a 240SX and an FCRX-7. And in my mind, if you look at the S13 240SX, it looks nearly identical to an RX-7 from the front. The pop-up headlights are the same shape. A lot of the fenders are the same shape and all that stuff.
But...
They used an S14 in the movie.
Thank you.
Which looks nothing like it. They could have gotten away with it.
Yes, exactly.
If they used the S13 with the pop-up headlights. They could have gotten away with it.
Okay,
and
so that's exactly what I was saying,
The whole time before I saw the movie, I was like, oh, FC to S13, it'll be fun. Like, it'll be like... For me, it'll be obvious, but for the viewer, it won't be.
And I thought, I'm never going to catch this. That was the funny part. I thought, I'm never going to catch this.
So the S14... has solid beam headlights like a normal car.
It does. It's completely different.
The taillights stretch completely across the car. Like the S14 is very different than the S13 and the FC.
Different. Yeah, they are.
So we'll talk about why this happened, but it was so funny.
It was so funny because it was so
that they
different.
were switching in the same scene.
They
were switching between
back and forth. Yeah.
They're driving a Nissan now. They're driving a Mazda now.
Right.
And like they're what.
I'm explaining this poorly.
I'm explaining this poorly, but there's no scene where they're like, "Oh, get out and get into this car." They're making it seem like it's the same car.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt that they are trying to make it seem like it's exactly the same car.
So bad.
Then
they get pulled over.
They get pulled over by the cop. Oh, go ahead. You're probably going to say this.
What? Go ahead.
The cop. I don't understand the whole cop thing. I didn't really get it.
Well, I forgot to mention, when the bad guy comes to the funeral, he goes, I own the pigs.
Yeah, I own
and I'm
the
like,
cops. Yeah,
what bad guy outwardly says that?
Right.
It was like, it was so shoehorned in. But basically, the cop, there's one cop.
There's like one cop
There's
in
one
the whole
cop.
movie.
He's a bad cop, basically, and he is betting against the main character, so he'll win a bunch of money in the race.
But we see him at the very first race. We see him standing next to the truck. That there's a dude sitting in the truck.
Toyota Tundra. Not the guy, but the truck.
That was his name, Toyota Tundra.
Honestly, he was a very big man.
Yeah, he was a big man.
So honestly, Toyota Tundra is kind of a hard nickname. I'm not going to lie. Hey, yo, Tundra.
Hey. Hey, all right, thank you. So no, but what happened? Okay, so those are a couple of things that really bothered me. Number one, the guy in the truck, Toyota Tundra, he doesn't say hardly anything in the first race. There's not much that he talks about in the very first race. So there's no development of his character whatsoever. Like, is this guy the guy who runs all of the races? Is he the main person? Is he the guy that everybody looks up to? Does he hold all the money? What does this guy do?
Right.
It seems like maybe you have to make the guess that this guy is the head of the racing or whatever. Standing next to the truck is the cop who basically gets on the radio to say, yeah, you're clear for the next 10 minutes. Okay, so fine. You got a bad cop.
Yeah, he's a dirty cop.
He's a dirty
who
cop
bets on the races to make money.
And he's helping them so that they don't get pulled over or whatever, right?
Right.
So, okay, fine. He's got that role in this whole movie and in this whole universe of the race.
Yeah.
Then he pulls over in the scene that we're talking about where the car switches back.
Yeah, where the car keeps switching.
I can't even say that without laughing. car switches back and forth. He pulls him over, and now it's an RX-7.
Yeah.
They get out of the RX-7. He pulls him over, and he goes, "You're getting sloppy. You're getting messy. And, when you do that, then people get hurt and blah, blah, blah." And the cop, like, beats him up for no reason, like, literally and physically beats him up and abuses him and slams his head against the hood of the car. For no reason, I'm like, why are you picking on this guy? And by the way, he has all this dirt on you about he could just turn around and turn you in.
Also, I thought it was interesting the mechanic who was with him at the time, the main character, was like, "Oh, I'll put you on the internet." And I was like, "Oh, this was way before, a decade before George Floyd. This was a decade before a lot of this stuff." And I was like, "Oh, that was like really forward thinking of like." I guess.
No, it was. You're absolutely right. It was. But what's interesting about that when she first says that is that she doesn't have any kind of phone. She doesn't have anything.
Yeah.
And we see later when that actually pays off. Like when there's a lot of kids with cell phones and blah, blah, blah. But again, I didn't understand. I'm like, what is up with this dude cop? Like, why is he so mad at this guy? He hasn't even made a bet on him yet or anything. So we get to that later. But again, it's hilarious because the car has changed back magically. Yeah. It's now this beautiful car, and the cop is coming over and just being mean to him and like, get out of here and all this. It's like, what just happened?
Also, why I wrote this cop interaction down actually was not having to do with any of that.
Okay, all right.
Was that he pulls up in a Crown Victoria police car.
And changes to a Yugo.
No. Which honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be shocked.
It's a station wagon when he pulls away.
Well, first of all, the only lights on the car is a little dash insert that you can buy on Amazon that is like these red blue lights. Also, if you look, it used to be a police car, but there was a part of the windshield where it had this like rubber filling. Yes. And that's where the spotlight goes.
Exactly. I noticed
so
that.
So they removed the spotlight. So it was like obviously like they couldn't even go online and just buy a spotlight to re-put in there to make it look like a cop car. They just like left it like
They just left
they
it.
Probably bought it at wholesale or knew a guy with a Crown Vic P71.
Probably knew a guy with
funny enough, this week I drove that exact car, a police spec Crown Victoria.
Yeah?
It didn't drive great.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're gonna make one of those into a Charger, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe not anymore.
Well, we'll see.
Because the guy who owned this car, it was 85,000 miles on the car, pretty low mileage.
Yeah.
Bought it for $8,000.
Oh, okay.
I was like, oh god, Crown Vic prices, Panther platform prices are going through the roof. Yeah. Panther platform is a Grand Marquis and Lincoln Town car. It's all the same exact car underneath, but. So I saw that they filled in the hole where the spotlight would go. So I was like,
exactly.
Just like
that was like
further push the fact that this is just a.
Come on, guys. Yeah, just I don't know.
Next up, he says you're getting sloppy. Maybe it's your brother dying, and I was like, man,
that's pretty cold.
That's
pretty cold.
I mean, that was just like. That is like exhibit A of dialogue that doesn't need to be said.
Right.
Like that's like something that an actor should have in the back of their head and like use it to sort of inform their decisions on scene. But then it's just he like just says it. But you're getting sloppy. Your brother died recently. Maybe that's a reason. And your mother is weird and a stripper.
Maybe it's because your brother rolled over and over several times and then crashed and then burned into a car and was exactly.
Which also they come to his aid. Yeah. When the brother does crash.
Right.
Car's fine.
Car's fine. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. Yeah. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, so go ahead.
Next up, they keep talking about top speed. They're trying to get this car to 200 miles an hour.
Right.
Hence in a street race, that's so unnecessary. Right, exactly. Even like, so I spend a lot of time with my friends who race Spec Miata and stuff, and like Spec Miata is very competitive, very fast racing. It's not very fast racing, but it's fast racing.
Right, sure.
On the back straight, you're hitting like, I don't know, 80, 90.
Right.
I mean, on a racetrack, it's very rare that you really go over like 110 on a racetrack in a normal car. Yeah. The 911, I said at the beginning of the video, that's a different, or podcast. That's a different example because that was kind of the point to take these cars out and do acceleration tests. But like in like wheel-to-wheel racing, like especially street racing with corners and stuff, you're not getting above 120, maybe. I mean, obviously Formula One cars will hit 200, but those are purpose-built $1 million cars. Like,
no, exactly, and I get that. But it's funny you say that because the guys talk about, hey, we need to get this up to 200 miles an hour or whatever, and the girl mechanic keeps saying you'll never get it up to that speed in a race, in a street race.
Yeah.
But
then they keep going with it. It's like
they didn't even hear what she said.
Shut up, woman.
Right.
And then just keeps going.
Right. And that's what I mean. That's what's so frustrating is she said it and she's right.
Yeah.
So shut up.
Yeah.
Stop talking about that. Yeah.
So that bothered me. Although I will say in that same scene where they're working on the RX-7, I don't know. They must have just filmed at someone's garage because on the shelf behind them is a bunch of 13B housings.
Really?
For a rotary engine,
right,
yeah.
well then,
So I was like, I know those exhaust ports. I was like, those exhaust ports with the baffles are the bane of my existence.
She does say that she has other clients, that she has to make money, and she's fixing other cars that
I just thought it was funny. If you look in the background of that scene, you'll see a bunch of 13B housings sitting on the shelf, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up, so they're talking about this one guy that did nitrous on an RX-7.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
This is where I wrote down because he was like the front end lifted up and he hit a second story of a building. But I was like, you know what? To be fair, the front end of my RX-7 did lift up over 100.
That's what we were talking about at the beginning. Was that the front end can lift up. Okay, when he first says it. Oh, yeah, the guy lifted up. And the guy is like crazy. It's like the nerdy garage guy. And he's like, yeah, the car, you can't do that because the car will lift up. And the guy went straight into a 2-story window, the second story window. Well, when the actual bad guy, the other bad guy explains it, it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, an RX-7 speedometer only goes up to 160.
It does.
So he was like, "Oh, he hit it at 180." I'm like, "There's no way he knew. There's no way he knew."
Yeah.
I went back and looked at my footage of RX-7s that I've reviewed, and I'm like, it only goes to 160. And I looked at the S4 and the S5 RX-7.
Okay.
So they only go to 160.
Good. Well.
I will say also in the same scene they're working on the RX-7, and it's an actual Turbo 2 intake on the engine. So
it is.
It was a turbo.
So that is accurate. Okay,
Next
found the one thing accurate in this movie.
Next up, I said strip club is too much.
Yep. Let's stop. Stop with the strip club, please.
Next, I said the second accident was very out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They get T-boned.
But yes, but what about the motorcycle accident with the girlfriend?
Oh yeah,
okay.
That whole scene, and then the girlfriend's a stripper too.
Yes, she is. So everyone's a stripper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
Here's the thing. I wrote strip club is too much. Yeah. I zoned out for most of this scene.
Okay. All right.
I started working. I was like, it's too much.
The girlfriend is a stripper too, and the bad guy goes to the strip club and makes her go into the booth with him, and then she starts to do a dance, and then she kicks him, and and then she runs away, and then he runs after her, and then he gets in his car. Well, he follows her home. Actually, this is before then. He follows her home, which is super, super creepy.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she's on her motorcycle, and he's like chasing her. A car pulls out in front of her, and she, I guess, hits it. You never see the motorcycle.
That's the thing is you never see any collisions because they didn't have the budget to fix anything.
No.
And also, anytime you did see a collision, it was full-on CGI that a 15-year-old learning how to do it in high school class did.
Yeah. And you just see her pop out from the other side of the car. She, like, rolls out. She rolls and then just gets up and keeps running. I'm like, wow. She actually, if she was in an accident like that, that was some pretty good, she's a pretty good stunt woman.
Talk about bad luck, because then she gets in another accident. She gets T-boned and she's left in the hospital.
Yes, and so, but what I was going to say is that first accident and the second accident both are pinned on the bad guy, and he really didn't do either one of those.
There's a side movie that could have been made from his perspective, where he's
like,
down on his
like,
luck.
What the heck?
And he's like, these crazy white people keep accusing me of wrecking. Well, but to be fair, the bad guy at the end.
Yeah.
In the ending race, we're skipping a little bit, but we'll go back here.
Okay.
In the ending race, the bad guy looks over and he's like, "I'll wreck you just like I wrecked your brother."
Exactly.
So I'm like, he is admitting fault.
He's admitting it, but no. So what happens? The first two accidents, he didn't really do, but the third one, he pushes the car from behind into traffic.
Yeah.
And a giant semi truck hits them. Which, by the way, if that actually happened, there's no survivors. Period.
Especially in an RX-7.
Right. Exactly.
I've seen plenty of wrecked RX-7s. They are not safe at all.
No, there's no way. And then she ends up in the hospital, and he has like a cut.
Fine. Yeah.
He has like a cut.
Well, they wheel him out, and then he stands up.
Right.
And I'm like, that was a little dramatic for no reason.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, I want to see. This is the other cringy part.
Okay.
The guy was like, I need to see my girlfriend. And the doctor was like, that can't happen.
Oh, yeah. That's right. This is totally ethical, by the way.
The kid's mom, the main character's mom, comes up and says, I'll give you free lap dances for a year if my son can see his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, room 203 or something.
Right.
And I'm like,
so
I don't like any of these people.
No, that's part of the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm, and second, if someone offers lap dances for a year, go ahead and take it and let whatever happen. Oh my gosh! Like,
So then, now this car that they've been building this whole time is now wrecked.
Yeah,
which is just, annoying to see.
Yes. Well, definitely completely wrecked. However, also remember too that the brother's car is completely demolished too, because he was in a bad flip over. Right. Go ahead.
So the last note I have here before I completely just checked out, was that they go to the junkyard to go get the brother's, the first wreck where the brother died. They go to get his car.
Yes.
Which is the 370Z.
Yes. Right.
They show up and they show the back of the 370Z pristine.
Pristine.
It's the rest is under a cover, but you can like see the taillights.
Right. Exactly.
Which is like
not
perfectly,
a scratch,
not a scratch. And then they do this heist,
Yes.
basically, where they steal the car out of the junkyard.
Right.
And the one kid is saying that...
Seriously, the dumbest heist I think I've ever seen. But anyway, go
the
ahead.
one guy goes into the front desk and he's like, oh, they should have faxed over the credentials, all this
Right,
stuff.
yes.
And they're stealing the car in the meantime. But then there's a shot of them standing behind the car.
Yeah.
And it's a CGI car.
Yes.
And it's back to the 350Z.
Right. Yes.
I guarantee you they got it either bought or got a very cheap or free download of like a 3D model,
right?
And just typed in like Nissan Z car or something. But here's the thing: they're all standing in front of it. The car isn't moving.
No, it's supposed to look like a car,
but it's all wrecked up.
Right?
Why couldn't they have just photoshopped a picture of the car that they had to be wrecked?
Yes,
that would, because at least it would have been the same flipping car.
Exactly. The car. Like you said, there was no motion in the scene.
Right.
So if there was motion in the scene, it would have been more difficult. But you're right. They could have.
It looked like they green screened themselves into like Midnight Club 3. Like the 2005 video game for PlayStation 2.
I think they actually did that. I think they probably did that. Yeah.
Like literally the model they used for the wrecked car has such a low polygon count that it was like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. It was like such an old... so it just took me out. Also because like the 350Z has door handles that go sideways and they're like up and they're very noticeable. They're very weird.
Yeah.
The 370Z just has normal door handles.
Oh, okay.
The headlights are all different. The taillights are all like everything. It's a different car. It's a different flipping car.
Okay. All right.
So it's just like it's so bothersome that like you can't keep track of any of the cars in this movie because they're always changing.
No, and when they quote unquote fix it, it is pristine.
Yeah.
It is absolutely perfect. There is not a flaw. There's no dents. There's nothing. If they could do that, and by the way, they only had 2 days. So if they could do that in 2 days, what are they doing racing? They would be like brilliant car mechanics and body people. if they could take a car like that and rebuild it perfectly, glass, everything.
Yeah.
I mean, everything was pristine. I was like,
So that's pretty much it for me. That's all the notes I have.
All right.
That was an hour of
yeah.
notes.
It's probably the most we've ever talked about an actual movie.
I do have some trivia though.
Okay,
if we want to get into
let's
trivia.
get into that.
Are you ready? Are you ready? This is brought to you by, but in no way sponsored by IMDb.
Yeah.
First of all,
Okay.
Tyrese Gibson paid the filmmakers to get him a role in this film. I'm sorry, I pulled that one from Transformers. That's our favorite trivia fact. That was from
true.
Transformers. As an
yeah.
episode last summer.
Yeah.
But okay, so for real, during the production, so this is why they switched cars.
Okay.
During the production, the Mazda RX-7 used as Rick Merchant's car was stolen in real life. The RX-7 belonged to the award-winning professional drifter Justin Pollock. The vehicle was inside a 26-foot enclosed Aztecs trailer attached to Pollock's Chevy 2500 HD. Altogether was stolen in the middle of the production of this film.
Jeez.
The stolen vehicles have never been seen since.
Wow.
So while they were making this movie,
Yeah.
they, I guess, borrowed or rented or leased, I don't know how it worked, this
Yeah.
professional drifter's RX-7. The green RX-7 was like a professional drift car.
All right.
It was stolen
Right.
during the production.
Actually stolen.
So for some of the B-roll pickup shots, I assume it was the same guy's car because the paint matched, and a lot of drift teams will do like that's like their signature kind of. Like here, well, not here in Chicago, wherever here in Chicago, there's a team called Risky Devils.
Okay.
And it's all different cars, but they all have the exact same paint color. So when they all drift together, you see like these 4 red cars drifting, and it's like this. It's basically like their jersey or whatever.
Sure.
So I assume he also or someone else on his drift team had that S14 because it was the same exact color.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
That's
I see
probably
what you're saying.
what
That's
happened.
probably what happened.
But yeah, for all the pickup shots after the car was stolen,
right.
they did pickup shots with an S14, and it's horrendously obvious.
Yeah, it is so obvious that even someone who does not have the eyes to know, to be able to tell cars apart. Basically, the older I get, the less I'm able to tell cars apart. But oh my gosh, completely different headlights.
Yeah,
and in fact, what's funny is that on the streaming service, the original the opening movie poster is the one car, and the closing movie poster, after you watch the trailer, the closing movie poster is the other car.
Oh my God.
And so that's why I was laughing almost in tears of, oh my gosh, even the streaming service, like nobody got this. Nobody understood.
Well, what's also funny is that the S14 that they use for some of the pickup shots is there at the first race.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Because then I was like, oh, there's a green S14.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's a green 240, which also the RX-7 and I believe the 240SX never came in a green color.
Okay.
So that's why I was like, or at least a green like that.
So there had to be something.
The 240
custom there.
came in like a kind of Montego blue, kind of, which is like a blue-green, like aqua, like dirty pond color.
Yeah.
But never this is like green. This is like pickle green.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was there in one of the first race scenes, and I was like, oh, that's weird. So then.
But they're to their benefit or whatever. In that first scene, or no, actually it was the second scene when no, it's the first race when the guy crashes, right?
Yeah.
And everybody has to scatter.
Mm-hmm.
It's hilarious because if you watch it very carefully, watch in slow motion, you can just pick, step through it. The the extras are actually laughing as they're running.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And it was like, what are you guys laughing at? You just witnessed a horrendous accident, and you're running from the cops, so you got to get out of there really quick, and you're just laughing. Well, obviously because they're having a good time making the movie, but
yeah, I'm sure they called up like a local car club or something because like the cars in that opening scene are hot.
Cool.
Like I said, R33s. There's a Celica GTST, 2 FDs, I think. RX-7s.
It was a very cool shot where the cars pull away, and you're like, wow, those are a lot of really cool cars.
Obviously, like a back parking lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, the only other thing that the trivia said was that throughout the movie, the green car is referred to as an MX-5. It's clearly an RX-7.
Right.
And then
Yes, that is
just
true.
basically the same thing reiterated. But throughout the film, Rick is building a Mazda RX-7 FC. During his test drive scenes, he drifts into a corner in the RX-7, but exits the same corner driving a Nissan Silvia S14.
It's an illusion.
This may be due to the fact that the hero car was stolen during production.
Yeah.
So that was the funny thing, too, is
magic.
that it wasn't like... It literally, you see the car drift, and the entrance...
Yeah.
It comes into the drift as a Mazda RX-7 and leaves as a Nissan 240SX. Like, or I guess it said Silvia. I thought it was a 240. But...
Top that David Copperfield or whoever,
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, it really is hilariously, like, you talk about no continuity. Holy cow.
It's a whole continuity
It
nightmare. And
is.
there's a couple overhead shots of them racing through traffic.
Yeah.
And it literally, it's the CGI because they couldn't afford a helicopter.
Yeah.
And so it literally looks like...
It is
It looks like a
CGI
PlayStation
car
2 video game
It
from
does.
2001.
Did they have a helicopter in this one? I thought they had a helicopter.
Yes, but it's CGI.
It's CGI helicopter.
Yeah, and it like comes down like at street level and is like not sized properly.
Yeah.
It's
Birdemic level of, if you've ever seen the movie Birdemic, it's Birdemic level of CGI graphics.
Yeah.
It's just really awesome.
yeah. So that's all I have about this movie.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if you have any closing
The
thoughts.
only other thing I was going to say is that when the guy who's Latino, it looks like he's like a gang member or something.
Oh yeah.
Comes to him at the end and goes, "Hey, I'm going to give you $100,000 for your car," and he's all excited about it, right? Well, number one, that was his brother's car. He talks about that car being his legacy car.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get this legacy car. They spend a ton of time and effort and everything putting it back to, and then he's like, "Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just give me $100,000." And he goes, and then the Latino guy goes, "Well," he goes, I understand," because he gives him didn't he give him the turbo?
Nitrous.
Nitrous? Yeah, nitrous. He goes,
Because he was the guy that crashed
Right.
at 180 miles an hour into a second story
into a
of
second
a building.
story.
Yeah.
And he does explain that by the fact that the front end began to lift. It started shaking. He hit something, and the car flipped, and the car hit something and flipped into the air into a second story. So it wasn't like it launched like a plane. So he did try to explain that. But then he comes and says, okay, and then he gives the girl mechanic, he says, "Oh, I've got a friend who works NASCAR."
Yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
that's nice, but
Again, that's just like a buzzword of like everyone knows NASCAR is like a huge racing series.
Right.
So
okay. I mean,
it would have been smarter if he said like, "Oh, my friend has like a speed shop,"
right?
Or like,
yes, exactly.
Like there's a place called like Eurosport where like they just work on like Porsche, like old air cooled Porsches and stuff.
Would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I don't know that she was even interested in NASCAR, believe it or not. And then she's like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Well, thanks." And it's like, well, I know you're trying to create a happy ending and tie everything together, but that's like not even.
Speaking of the Latino guy, though, he goes to his house. The main character goes to his house and gets the nitrous kid off of him, whatever. And I guess
he's Charger in the driveway.
That's a Challenger.
Challenger, okay.
But I guess he supposedly is supposed to have an RX-7.
Yes.
Which, like, to be fair, RX-7's huge in the Latino community.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
So that was good. But he obviously didn't have an RX-7 because he's like, "Can I see it?"
Yeah.
And the car's covered in a tarp, and he pulls up like the tiny little corner, gives it a tiny peek, and he's like, "Yep, that's good.
That's cool. That's good." It's like you didn't even look at the car.
Yeah. This kind of movie, I wouldn't be surprised if he like lifted up the cover slightly and went, "Wow, that's a beautiful RX-7 under there." Like it was like so
that
obvious
is totally
that
in your garage.
It honestly looked like the silhouette of like a Civic.
Yeah, it could have been anything. Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. So
very
those are all my thoughts. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up?
No, it just was. It got 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it really did. And I was saying in the beginning of this conversation, this podcast, is that Asylum is the name of the company that did this. They also did the well-known and renowned movie Two-Headed Shark Attack, which I think it's called Two-Headed Shark Attack. Anyway, it's about a movie it's a total ripoff of the movie Jaws, but it's about a shark that has two heads that goes around and kills people.
Oh God, it's like Sharknado.
Exactly. So it is that level, and the graphics are exactly the same, and it's really pretty pathetic. And and that also got 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. So
they're consistent. I'll give them that.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. But anyway,
would you watch it again? You mentioned to me maybe.
Yeah, I might watch it just because it was so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, it wasn't because it was a great movie. It was because it was so funny, and it made me laugh so hard when I saw the cars changing and the fact that the acting is so bad and all of that stuff. I would watch like the car parts and stuff like that, but I wouldn't like sit down and watch the movie again.
Yeah, I
Certainly
wouldn't
not.
watch this one again.
It's not a
good.
It's not like, oh, let's have that in our collection and watch it. No, it's not like that. So no, I wouldn't. If it were on, first of all, I'd be surprised that it was on.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked that it was on. And then second of all, I would be like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll leave it on. But actually, I probably would change the channel. To be honest with you, if it was on the TV upstairs, I would change the channel because it's cringy.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff that are
cringy,
cringy.
yeah.
And like, that would be the time that, our next door neighbor stops by for
and that's
something.
That's the other thing is that like even when I watch in my room, when like nudity comes up and like I'm always like turning down the volume and stuff.
I know exactly.
I don't want someone standing outside my door to be like, what the heck is he watching?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's rough. Especially like even like Family Guy sometimes will get like
I
real
know.
like
Giggity.
Yeah, all that stuff. So
I mean,
I wouldn't watch it again either.
No, I wouldn't watch it. I would actually change the channel.
Yeah, I would change the channel too.
Yep. Okay.
But thank you very much for
next week
picking it. Well, I want to say Alex and Brent, thank you very much for the recommendation.
Yes.
It was very fun to watch through.
It was fun.
It's one of those movies. I know that the Nagy family has a very strong nostalgia to this movie.
Okay,
not for a good. I think they recognize that it's not very good. Not for different reasons, but thank you for the recommendation. I have two movies in mind.
Okay.
I'll let you pick 90s or 2010s.
This movie was made in the 2010s, so let's go with the 90s movie, whatever the 90s movie
So on Hulu.
No, we're not watching it.
Days of Thunder.
Days of Thunder.
Have you heard of this movie?
Tom
Cruise.
With Tom Cruise. Yes,
So the reason I wanted to watch this one was
it's on Hulu.
That's what it said with the
right,
premium subscription.
Okay.
You
All
get
right.
it.
Days of Thunder.
I listened to a podcast called Two Bears, One Cave. It's with Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer.
Okay.
And Bert Kreischer's like this big hype man, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And Tom's really into race cars, like racing cars. So they're trying to start a real life racing team. These two comedians
Seriously,
are trying to start
real?
like a real racing team.
Wow. Okay.
And Bert just keeps wanting to say he wants to be like the pit chief in Days of Thunder. He's like, that's like the coolest guy ever. I've never seen Days of Thunder. I know Tom Cruise is in it, and it's a NASCAR movie.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I know about Days of Thunder. So
I don't know anything about it. I've never seen it, so that'll be interesting for me to see it. Not a huge Tom Cruise fan, but I would, I'll watch it because it's
I'm very back
job.
and forth on Tom Cruise.
It's my job. Yeah.
We'll see. But so next up, Days of Thunder. I believe it's on Hulu if you want to stream it. But we'll find it somewhere or another.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening.
Yep,
if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, check us out on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, check us out on Spotify and iTunes. 8 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday morning.
Yeah, it's good.
We're actually recording on a Saturday too right now, which is unlike us, which is
it's unusual. Yeah, definitely. So
very unlike. We usually record midweek.
Next one's Days of Thunder. Okay.
Yeah, Days of Thunder.
Right.
So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.